our honorable speakers, honorable members of the House, speakers, ladies and gentlemen. I'd like to thank and congratulate ROWEAD for this auspicious event. I'm just waiting for the presentation to be put up. Well, while waiting for the presentation to be put on the screen, I'll just quickly comment on what Adebisi said about women not really working with women, because my concluding notes today will talk about that. And I also want to say that I learned from our chairman today when he said the men who are your brothers and fathers and sons would work with you, but the men who are your spouses and your bosses would not work with you. I found that really fascinating, and yes, he's repeating it, that your spouses and your bosses in the office would, or colleagues in the office would compete with you. I'd really like to take the chairman up on that. Yes, thank you. Yes, thank you. So Live Well initiative is that being controlled manually or with this? Please, I need to know. Manual. Okay, thank you. Live Well initiative, we have the slogan promoting wellness and preventing ill health. And today I'll be talking about women as the powerhouse at the base of the pyramid. Most times when we gather as elites or educated people, we hardly really remember people at the base of the pyramid, whereas the people at the base of the pyramid actually constitute, in Africa alone, the people at the base of the pyramid constitute 40 to 60% of the population. So if we say that the women are more than 50%, we might as well say that, I would conveniently say that women at the base of the pyramid in Africa constitute at least 30% of the population of Africa. So there is very significant and palpable population, and we really need to look at who that woman is at the base of the pyramid and what role she will play in the emerging democracies in Africa. Now, the typical African woman, like Professor Koi said, despite her levels of social, educational emancipation or whatever level, she still needs to continue to be a life giver, an entrepreneur, and provider of care to family, to friends, to neighbors, and she's a builder of Africa's future. And that woman includes palpably the woman at the base of the pyramid. And if you look at that image depicts the woman at the base of the pyramid. I don't really see any of the women in this hall fitting into this. That is a woman carrying her baby on her back and her means of livelihood on her head. And that's the typical African woman. If you look at the next slide, you see different images of the same woman. I don't really think any of us in this hall fits into that category. And those are the women that I want to talk about today. Now, the WHO report, next slide please. A recent WHO report published last year actually recognizes that women's health is a human rights issue and should be promoted and defined as such. That the health of every woman should be defined as a human rights issue. And the women in Africa, like I said, represent over 50% of the continent's human resource. And special focus, therefore, needs to be placed on the health of the women, and in particular, maternal mortality. That is, how many women die in the process of trying to give birth to a baby. So if we look at the Millennium Development Goals, and the United Nations got together and said, in this new millennium, let us put together 8 goals that need to be achieved to make the world a better place by the year 2015. Now we're all very close to 2015. Too many of the goals have not really been achieved, and they're now saying, let's make it 2025. It's still being debated all over the world. However, looking at it from the point of view of the woman, the MDGs as it relates to the woman, how many women die each year from pregnancy? There are a lot of achievements towards the goals, like at least 30 countries of the 75 countries that were listed for the attainment of the Millennium Development Goals. At least 30 countries have been able to achieve palpable figures in terms of bringing down the figures of maternal mortality, less women are dying, and so on. And then globally, there's been a drop to 287,000 from 543,000 deaths in the year 1990 to 2010, and the figures are dropping gradually, but the target of 0 by the year 2015 is not being attained. However, more than 30 countries have been able to cut mortality among women by half, so we are making progress, although not at the rate that is desirable. So let's look at the inequalities in the next slide. There are vast inequalities in coverage for healthcare access for women, and it's been found that a woman who comes from an educated family and is herself educated is likely to have the benefit of a skilled attendant at the point when she's having a baby, compared to a woman of low literacy level, a woman at the base of the pyramid. And it's been found that in the African countries studied, women with secondary or higher education were more likely than women of low literacy to give birth with a skilled attendant, maybe a gynae doctor being present and all that. So the base of the pyramid itself is home to billions of the aspiring poor people. And it's rather difficult to think of innovation. I don't think any of us here fits into that category of women. But when you're talking of the democracies in Africa, emerging democracies, these women should and must have a say. So how can we get them to have a say? We look at the next slide shows the Maslow's hierarchy of needs that I was talking about. And if you look at the base of that pyramid, you find that the women at the base, they are just thinking of physiological needs. And then those who have food, shelter, or water start thinking of safety needs. Well, I think with the current situation in Nigeria, I think that may apply to many of us, but you'll be surprised that some people still feel disengaged from what's happening. You go from safety needs to self-esteem, being needs. You know, you want to have a good sense of self-worth, and then thereafter self-esteem. And once you are able to achieve all that, you now get to the top of the base of the pyramid. I work in the non-profit sector, and the way we work in the non-profit sector, it's a social enterprise. You're looking at the social gaps. So we've classified the poor women into 3 categories. We have the urban poor, the rural poor, and the working poor women. So what are we doing about emancipating these women who constitute a palpable chunk of the women population in Africa, to get them to come and vote, and to vote knowledgeably, like Professor Coy said. Now, the women at the base of the pyramid, for these women, what they need is food, water, shelter. And if you're able to provide those things, they will move on to a higher level of thinking. But at least if they have those basic things, they will be able to look at democracy and what it entails. How can you help a woman in this slide? You have to provide her good health care for her children and for herself, because if she's fit enough, even though she's a farmer, she'll be able to go to the farm, she'll be able to sell her wares in the village market, and she will be financially emancipated at her own level. After all, our women are able to pay for their children's school fees. They don't wait for the men. A woman in the village who is healthy is emancipated enough to earn an income and take care of her family. We have the LWI experience. We've been able to work with the urban, rural, and working poor women, and we've been able to emancipate a lot of women through healthcare by making sure that we take healthcare to the women at the base of the pyramid. offering them health screening and so on. So we need to start emancipating women in whatever field we are in our own way. So to empower the women, I'll start by quoting Green and Cohen, who as far back as 1995, which was the year of the Beijing Agenda, said that an entrepreneur is an entrepreneur is an entrepreneur. However, there are differences in business and industry choices, financing strategies, etc., growth patterns, and governance structures of female-led enterprises and ventures. So with health, whether little or in quantum, health is wealth, and from the smallest things to the greatest, the woman influences the family's health in a very palpable way. So if you show me a well woman, I will show you a wealthy nation. If our women are well, we will be a wealthier nation. Mentor a woman at the base of the pyramid from today. You could pick that woman who sells you provision, or who sells you fabric, or who sells granite and bolly near your street or something, and mentor her. This mentoring could be as simple as asking about her children, how are they doing? Maybe she has a child that has dropped out of school. You could help counsel that child and get that child back on track. Mentor a woman today at the base of the pyramid, and provide healthcare access for a woman at the base of the pyramid today. Many of those women do not have access to healthcare. Now, for those who don't know how, you could maybe mail us or something and we tell you how to do that. Thank you very much. God bless you all.